let's meet another of our judges. This is Dave Fernandez. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Dave is Director, SKB Institute for Financial Economics at Singapore Management University. Dave, how are you?
I'm well. Thanks so much, Leah.
Fantastic. It's good to see you. Now, this is going to be the first of many MAIAs for you, I'm sure. But I mean, how would you describe the overall quality of the entrants for the different categories? Because it's always hard when you have to judge people, given the amount of work they've put into everything. So what was the quality like?
It was very high quality and made more difficult by the global reach of the entries. So I think these are the things that struck me. When you're sorting through in any particular category, in my case, where I'm going to talk about academic papers, but also for adult education, when you're comparing high quality work that is done in different geographies, I think it makes it really difficult for judges to think about how to match those up. So I think this is where wherever we sit, we work on trying to help improve the education and financial literacy in where our geography. But I think seeing the entries that came from across the globe was really quite eye-opening and made our job that much harder.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not that straightforward, isn't it? Because as you said, you've got so many different geographies to consider as well. So given that context, what is it that you personally look for when you're trying to select a winner?
So what we want to see, I think, is we want to see, certainly in the academic area, we want to see the rigor. And we want to see something where it has that global reach, where you have a case where you're taking as big a sample as possible in order to be able to, as best you can, generalize the results that you're finding. So that would be what I was looking for in that particular category. When it comes to other categories, I think that what you want to look for is something that's sustainable. Something where the effort, for all of these, there's such great enthusiasm on the mission of building up people's financial literacy, but you want to see something that has legs, something that isn't just an idea, but is also one that's built to endure and to continue to build going forward. And that's typically one that is going to involve the whole ecosystem, where it's not just a single person's vision, but also a vision that can involve many different stakeholders. So those are the types of things that we're looking for in the winners.
I mean, earlier in the presentation, when we came on air, we saw a video, a compilation of statistics, graphics, etc., which really explained the need for financial literacy. But certainly one of the things which stood out is this disconnect that on the one hand, more people know how to read and write than they do perhaps understand the basics of finance. From your perspective as an academic, why do you think that disconnect exists, that the one hasn't kept pace with the other?
Well, you mentioned the word arrogance, at one point, how people just say, oh, we know that you'll figure it out when the time comes. And I've been shocked to see that actually in some of the academic work that's also done, where people are rewarded for trying to be clever and say, well, you don't really need to teach that. It'll come along. How is that possible when every other bit of education, like reading and writing, needs to be taught explicitly? And I think that's where you get that disconnect, where people don't understand, don't appreciate the fundamental importance of it. And I think that almost everyone who works in this area has a personal as well as professional journey that they've been on when they've hit that realization. In my case, at a personal level, I'm a father of 4, and it's very clear that my kids in their education hadn't been being taught these things, and that gap needed to be filled. I'm also the son of a 88-year-old Filipino mother who was not also taught those things, and at this advanced age in her sunset years, needs still to be aware of those financial needs that she has and what she would like to do with her wealth after she leaves. And I think that all of that is part of the education journey that we have not been taught in school. So as you said, that's my profession. I am a professor of finance at a university, yet at the universities here in Singapore, that is not a required thing to be taught either. So I needed to take that on personally, started the first financial literacy course here at Singapore Management University just this year, where I involved then a lot of the private sector companies as well as the government. We can bring the ecosystem along to make it now part of the formal education, at least as an option for students here at the university.
And it is very concerning that there is no recognition of that gap, so to speak, within certain levels of society, that perhaps people feel, well, the grown-ups have sussed it out already, so they don't need to learn anything, and the kids will work it out for themselves. But when you go beyond that and perhaps move further up the chain towards governments and official bodies, do you get the sense that they are recognizing the importance of bridging that gap, and that if you actually have that recognition at official level, that perhaps it can start tipping the balance the other way?
I'm super encouraged what's happening right now. You see this happening across the world. My first job out of university was at central banks, and you see that happening at central banks around the world, where they are saying this is part of our mandate. If we are to manage financial stability as well as monetary policy in our countries, we need to be involved with educating our public so that would improve, with the education of the citizenry, the financial stability of the country. You see central banks taking that up. You see governments here in Singapore, the Ministry of Manpower, for example, is actively involved. And we're seeing this very important things happening in Europe, and also within certain states in the US. These are trends I think that are building, and one of the award winners that I'm going to talk about soon in Latin America, also where governments, in this case in Peru, are taking that up. So I'm very encouraged that in the official sector, governments and central banks are finally picking up this cause.
Yeah, and it's really interesting as well that the central banks themselves are being given, well, are taking on that responsibility, because we see them as the interest rate makers, we see them as the body responsible for QE, quantitative easing, etc. And if there are consequences, well, they can explain it away, but it's not necessarily done in a way that is user friendly, shall we say. But that's another conversation for another day. What I'm going to do now is sit back and take a bit of a break now, because I'm going to hand things over to you. You are in charge of the microphones, because you're going to announce the winners in two categories. This is category F and category G. So if you can tell us what these categories are, who the winners are, and do feel free to give us a drum roll, your own version of a drum roll, if that's what you wish. We do encourage percussion on this show.
Very good. Thank you so much. I do have a table in front of me that's just, yearning to be beaten. So my first category is best academic paper. So drum roll. The winner in this category, the top award, goes to 4 university researchers, 2 based in the US and 2 based in Germany, a team led by Professor Anna Maria Lusardi. Their paper is what's called a meta-analysis. Which means that it brings together evidence on financial education, and it focuses on 76 studies considered using what's considered the gold standard of rigorous academic evaluation, which are called randomized controlled trials. So the bottom line of this research is that it finds that financial education works and that it works effectively. Astonishingly, as I mentioned before, there is still some debate about the effectiveness of financial education among the academic community. Someone who works at a university myself, university people love to argue. They'll argue about anything. And academics are often rewarded for being clever, though not necessarily correct. These so-called clever people have tried to argue that evidence about financial education's efficacy is only mixed. But this winning academic paper, this landmark study, should put to an end that debate with this meta-analysis of the recent available randomized controlled trials that includes a large number of studies across 33 different countries. This study finds sizable effects of financial education and knowledge and behavior, and it's done really encouragingly. This financial education can be done at a low cost. Lastly, I would note that this winning article, led by Professor Anna Maria Lusardi, was published just earlier this year in the Journal of Financial Economics. In the economics world, that's a big deal. Here at Singapore Management University, where I teach, there are only considered 3 A-rated finance journals. In this journal, the Journal of Financial Economics is one of those 3. So congratulations to Prof. Anna and team. I also just want to quickly mention our honorable mention that goes to a paper that was on gamification. Gamification is a super hot topic, including in financial literacy. And these 2 authors from Finland published a paper in a leading journal, the Journal of Economic Education. And they surveyed over 40 secondary schools in Finland and compared the learning outcomes in schools that use game-based learning methods and those that did not. And what they found was a robust evidence that financial knowledge improved more in the schools that used games versus those that did not. So congratulations to Prof. Kanu and colleague. So I want to move on to my second and last topic. My second award is in the area of adult education. So the drum roll. The prize in adult education goes to Fernandez and El Cole. This is a Peruvian teacher training, which then spreads where teachers then spread financial literacy to their students. Fernandez and El Cole program provides financial knowledge in Peru to public education teachers so that they can develop skills in their students that allow them to properly manage their resources and in the future be informed users who make responsible decisions about financial products and services. The program contemplates face-to-face training for teachers and provides them with knowledge, but above all, to sensitize them, empower them, and commit them to being the best facilitators of knowledge toward their students. So felicidades to the Finances and El Cole team. Thanks very much. Back to you, Juliette.
Thank you very much for that, Dave Fernandez, and congratulations to those winners. Now let's move on.